This video covers how to update the firmware on your Hermes-Lite 2. To do the update, you will need software from Altera. This is the website where you can download the software. This software is used to program the FPGA and the EEPROM that is connected to the FPGA. You have two options. You can download the Lite edition, which is free, and it includes all the files necessary to rebuild and recompile the RTL into a new bit file if you would like to do that. If you are just interested in programming a new bit file that is posted on the Hermes-Lite 2 GitHub site, you can go down here and select by software and only download the programming software. And any recent version 13.1 and on should work for the Hermes-Lite 2. There are instructions on this page for how to install and set up this software, and the software is supported in Linux and in Windows. You will also need to download the latest bit file for your Hermes-Lite 2. The firmware bit files are located on our GitHub site. Here's the address at the top here. And if I look at the bit files directory, we see that there are subdirectories for each date where firmware was released. If I go to the latest release here, we see that there's a description usually of some of the changes for that firmware, plus subdirectories for the different Hermes-Lite 2 models that are out. So if I go into the Hermes-Lite 2 Beta 5 subdirectory, there are 4 bit files here. Most people will use the .jic format. This is the bit file that programs the EEPROM so that every time you power on your Hermes-Lite 2, you will have this latest firmware. The .sof only programs the FPGA. It's volatile and is used primarily for testing. And the .jam formats can be programmed from a Raspberry Pi, and there are instructions on our wiki for how to do that. For this demo, I am going to program a Hermes-Lite 2 Beta 2, and so I will download this hl2b2.jic file. To program your Hermes-Lite 2, you have to connect it to your host computer running the Altera software with a USB blaster. These USB blasters can be purchased on eBay for under $5. And here you see one that is connected to the host computer, USB, and on the other end it's connected to the Hermes-Lite 2 board. The programming header is right next to the FPGA, and you'll notice on the silk screen there is a gap right near the FPGA, and that gap corresponds to where a tab is on this programming header. I've downloaded the software, and I will go ahead and start this. Now here you see in the hardware setup, it has detected a USB blaster. Sometimes this won't be detected, and you can go to hardware setup, and it will list any hardware that is available, and you could double click on the hardware you like. Next, I'm going to add the programming file. So I go to Add File. And here we see that the expected JTAG chain is the FPGA with the EEPROM sitting off of the FPGA. This is a two-step programming process. First, there will be a factory image that's loaded into the FPGA, and that image allows us to talk to the EEPROM. Then, when the image is loaded, we write the firmware into the EEPROM so that next time the Hermes-Lite 2 is power cycled, it will load the firmware from that EEPROM. So to program and configure, we have to click this box, and then go ahead and start. And here I had not powered on my Hermes-Lite 2, so it detects the FPGA with no power. But in order for it to be programmed, the Hermes-Lite 2 needs to be powered on, It doesn't need to be connected to the internet. It doesn't need to have software running. So now I've powered it on, and I'll try again. So here, the first step, it programs that image into the EEPROM, into the FPGA to talk to the EEPROM. And now we're actually writing contents of the EEPROM. Okay, it has programmed successfully. You may need to power cycle your Hermes-Lite 2 in order for it to load the new firmware. Or you can go to Tools, Options, and Programmer. And if you have this checked, it will initiate the configuration of the FPGA from the EEPROM after programming is finished.